there's anyone there. I am just sorting out TikTok Studio as well, so apologies, and then we'll get to it. Got any questions, anything you want me to cover, pop it in the chat. Otherwise I will be there in just a second. Still getting used to this, only the second stream, so trying to figure out the tech and multiple streams at once. Swag Arms, hello mate. Trying to log back into TikTok so I can get it going over there. Every time I try and stream on TikTok via my PC, it's just reinstalls itself and everything. It's a bit of a pain. Let's have a look. If not, we'll just sack it off. Got a new site. No, that's the Mark in the Cloud website, mate. I just thought I'd leave it up instead of my desktop. Have you not been on it recently? Because it was just the links before, right? So maybe you haven't seen it since I kind of re-released it. There's a bunch of like broken links and stuff. I haven't really finished it, but I thought I'd tidy it up a bit. That has not logged me in. Should have done this before. Apologies. Can only be confirmed once. Okay. Oh, I can't even get into TikTok. Let's sack that off. Never mind. It's taking its sweet time. I still haven't figured out how to stream to TikTok without just using my phone. Never mind, never mind. Right, okay. There's only a couple of you in at the moment, but I was going to go through... Oh, let me record as well. Okay. Yeah, I was going to go through some tech stuff. So I can either talk through some stuff or I can actually show it you on the screen. I was going to do a little bit of Linux sysadmin stuff, but I appreciate everyone's at a different point in their journey, so let me know what you want and I will focus on that. Guys in the chat, who has started? Pete, welcome along, mate. Who's still all learning Linux? Anyone? Would it be worth me going through some of that stuff? Just some like basic commands and that, or have you got questions on the roadmap or on specific technologies? I know some people asked in the chat about projects and stuff, but I can't remember who asked that, and I don't think they're here yet. Let's have a look. Live stream. A busy weekend. I didn't even turn the laptop on. That's it, mate. Life gets in the way. It takes time, but there's no rush. There is no rush. Personally, I'd like to know more projects, deeper understanding of DevOps technologies and how they work with one another end to end. Right, okay, so if I talked... Alright, yeah, let's start there then, because that's quite a meaty one. So, all the technologies, let me bring up the roadmap. There we go, look at that. Has that come up? Newest to DevOps. Yeah, okay. The stream is just delayed. Right, so... This is the roadmap, right? So the Linux server management stuff is like the bread and butter, but it's just really to give an understanding of how the operating system works, because on a day-to-day basis, I'm not on a Linux box either as my host machine, because I use a Mac, and it's a little bit similar, and I'm not like SSHing into remote servers all the time, but sometimes you might have to, and that is why that is the first point there. So anything that you spin up in the cloud on AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, even the small ones, there's like Linode, DigitalOcean, and Vultr, there's loads of them. All of the underlying tech is Linux, right? So if you get any of those servers, you spin them up, then you're going to be on the command line. And so for those of you that are new to this and haven't even started yet, we can just talk through some of this stuff, right? So I'm on Windows 10, I think, and it now has the Windows subsystem for Linux, right? So hopefully that's loaded up now. Basically, the Linux server looks like this, right? There is no graphical user interface like Windows. There are two versions. There is a desktop version, Ubuntu desktop, and there is Ubuntu server, and then there are a bunch of other types of Linux distributions as well. So this is, if you were to SSH into a box, and by box I mean a virtual machine on a server in a data center somewhere. So let's say Amazon's offering is EC2. You would be presented with this, right? It's your username and then the host name, okay? And so if I do host name, yeah, there you go. So the host name, that's just the name of my machine, all right? Command line, zoom in. I hadn't considered that. Let's have a look. There we go, on a smaller window, but zoom in. How's that, buddy? Anyone? Looks better. Cool. Let's just make it much bigger, actually, because I've got plenty of space. Right. So you've got your username at the host name, and the host name is just the name of the machine that you're on, and that is actually changeable. I could probably figure out how to change that by just asking. Let's have a look. Okay. So -- help whilst on the Linux command line, and we're just jumping into basically tutorials now, so if I go too fast I apologize, but when you look back at it, it might be useful, and it tells you like what you can do, right? So there you go. So the first command there, hostname -b, you can set the host name with a file. You have to pass in a file, and then you've got all of these different, and they're called flags, right? So they're minus or a hyphen followed by a letter, either lowercase or uppercase, and they are different, and they usually it's called a flag. So the command is hostname, and then help there is the flag. So this is basically how you find out what to do how to do anything in Linux. Okay, and there are a bunch of commands, and so this is all of the help. So if you type in any known command into Linux and then --help, it will give you basically how to use it, right? It's got alias, long names, DNS name. Did I miss the part how you can change it? B, maybe it's just B. Let's try that. So let's just try hostname -B, and then just call it Mark's PC. Must be root. Okay, so there we go. So certain things are restricted to root users, and the root is the owner of the machine. Okay, so I am just a measly normal user on this machine, but I do have root privileges, and the way that you access those root privileges as a normal user is to do sudo, however you want to say it, and that basically says super user do, and then followed by this command, right? And it'll ask me for my password to prove that I can. And I'll show you. I'll take a step back in a second, and it's going to ask me for my password. And then if we do hostname Mark PC, okay. So that's completely changed the name of this host, and this is essentially Windows version of a virtual machine for Linux, right? And so that hasn't updated there, but if I close it, it should. There we go. I've got to zoom in again now. God damn it. So it's changed it to Mark PC, right? Which is what we just changed it to. So very, very simple, but that is all that is telling you is, because imagine if you've got a bunch of windows open, right? You could be in 5, 6 different machines at once if you're trying to troubleshoot some stuff. You could be on a web server, you could be on a server that's got a database and stuff, and you might have to be in multiple. And so if you give it a useful host name, then you'll know where you are at all times, okay? So we're just going to do some basic system admin stuff while we're here, right? So if you want to add a new user, and it's going to require sudo again, and it will ask for my password again because I just closed the session and reopened it. You just do add user, okay? And then you can give it an, we won't do Mark, let's do Mark in the cloud. Okay. I was thinking about it. Oh, I've broken the host. Oh dear, that's not a good sign, is it? Okay, so it's adding a user, Mark in the cloud, and it wants a password for that user. Yeah, Nando, I've just basically broken my Windows subsystem for Linux. Is this correct? Yes. Okay. So now we've got a user, right? I'm just going to actually change that host name back. Sudo host name -B. In fact, I can't because I've no idea what it was. It was some like weird desk thing, wasn't it? Never mind. I'll watch the recording back and change it, or uninstall and reinstall it. So now, if I want to switch user, you can do su, and then I can be Mark in the cloud again. Or not again, for the first time. Okay, so now I need the password. And now you can see I'm now Mark in the cloud at Mark PC, right? So this would be exactly the same if you were on a remote box anywhere, hosted anywhere. And so you never do anything as the root user, because that is really just asking for trouble, okay? Because you can do a lot of stuff with root without having to use that sudo command. So if you were to remove certain files or directories in the infrastructure or the in the disk, then you can just break the whole installation and it would never prompt you for it as a root user. And so you try and do stuff as a privileged user. So Mark in the Cloud doesn't have access to do any of the sudo stuff, right? Because I never added him to the sudo group. So if we do a simple command for updating Ubuntu in particular is to do sudo apt, and so apt is the package manager. So if you want to install something, it's sudo apt install package name, and we'll do sudo apt update, and it should tell me that I don't have access. Okay, let's have a look after the password. Okay, so mark in the cloud. That's really going to annoy me. Mark in the cloud is not in the sudo as file. Incident will be reported. So that will be logged somewhere now to say, basically, an unauthorized user attempt to do something they shouldn't. Okay, so we're going to switch back to Mark. Oh, I went too soon. You can do the up arrow to go to your previous commands, right? And you can go as far as you need to. It only goes back 2 because Nando legend. Right, let's change that. Okay, so now I'm back there. So let's go to the hostname stuff. Let's change it back to desktop -1 PUS 5 OF. Is that right? Should just copy and paste this, shouldn't I? Unable to resolve host. Okay, I think it will be fine, right? And so if you wanted to clear the screen now, you can type clear, or you can do Command and L, does the same thing. Right, so if I do Command L, that clears it as well, right? So Mark can do the command that I just tested, so sudo apt update. Okay, so that is basically going to check all of the known packages known by apt that you've installed, and there you go, it tells you that all of those can be upgraded. If I do that now, it's probably going to take a little while and it won't be particularly great viewing, but it would be sudo apt upgrade, and that will list all the packages that can be upgraded, and then it will ask you yes or no whether you want to continue. It tells you how much disk space. Well, I can do that actually and then say no. Okay, so all of these things here, there's a bunch of stuff in here. They're all pre-installed because I haven't done much extra installation in here. So, and it says that after this operation, there'll be a little bit of disk space freed up actually. 64 upgrades and 34 standard LTS updates. I'll put no because that could take a while. Actually, it's only 78 meg. Let's do it. Yeah, it's not going to take too long. So if you are updating a machine, this is what you would do, right? Log into a machine. So if you set up a virtual machine on your desktop, or you use this Windows subsystem for Linux, and before you install any packages, when you check online, you'll notice that they always say do sudo apt update and then sudo apt upgrade, and it just updates. It just gets the latest version of the packages and lets you know what's available and stuff. So it's good practice to do that as soon as you log on. If you had a production workload running on here, i.e. you were on a box for any reason and you had a web app or something running, you would be more careful with this, and there's just better ways to handle it in a real work setting, but it's useful to know. So we've got the user Mark in the cloud, and he can't do anything at the moment because we didn't add him to a special group, which is the sudo group, right? So sudo, and then so to change a user, you would do user mod, so which obviously sounds like user modification, and that's all it means. And then you do, actually, let me show you. I know what the command is, but let me just show you user mod --help. Okay, there we go. So what we're going to do is to append, which is appending the user to additional groups essentially, mentioned by the G option, which is what we're going to do. So I'm going to do -A and G, and there's a bunch of other stuff you can do here as well, but I just want to show, if you're unsure of what to do, -- help is the answer for most things, right? So let's just clear that. So sudo user mod -ag, and when you're doing multiple flags at a time, you can just do it off of one hyphen. A lot of the time, unless you're having to pass in additional data for each one, you can bunch them up together. And in this case, the order does matter, I believe. So user, so we go to user mod mark sudo. Am I going to get that wrong the wrong way? Add group. No, it's the sudo group, and we're going to add mark. Okay. I am already mark in the cloud. Okay, so now if I switch user to mark in the cloud, god damn it, it's very deliberate on Linux as well that the password characters don't show up either, even in as an asterisk. So stuff is being typed in. Doesn't make it particularly. There you go. So that confirms really that I am in that group, because it's letting me know as the first time I'm logging in that I've now got these sudo commands. We didn't have that before. And you'll notice I'm in /home and / is root, so the very, very lowest level of the directory or hard disk basically. And then every user has their own folder in home. So if I change directory and then do, where's the tilde on this keyboard? Okay, that's, let me switch my other keyboard on quickly. I don't know where the tilde is. Okay, so that is basically change directory to home. So cd is change directory. So if I do that, you'll notice that this will change to home / mark in the cloud. Okay. So if you do, okay, I think it's because I pressed other keys first. Right. So it did work. It was because I was messing around with the keyboard first. So cd is change directory and the tilde is to home. Okay, so if I now print my working directory, which is what pwd stands for, you'll see it is I'm now in home, mark in the cloud. And because it's me and I'm in my home, it just has the tilde there. Before, when I switched user, I was obviously mark before and I was in my home, and then when I switched to mark in the cloud, because I was not in my own home, it told me the full path. Okay, so home / mark, just to let me know that I was in another directory which wasn't my home. Print working directory or present working directory. I thought it was print, but I may be wrong. Let's have a look. Pew. What? pwd-help. Print the name of the current working directory. So I would say it was print, but it could be present. It doesn't matter. It means the same thing, I guess. Okay, so what have we done? We've done cd. We've done pwd. I've showed you how to add a user. You can also add groups in the same way. So it would be sudo add group. You are going to use that a lot less likely these days, but if you wanted to create a group for admins, right, and then you could create a folder or directory somewhere, and you could make the owners of that directory the admins, and then only they could get into it. Like, that is happening less and less these days, but if you went into actual system administration, you would probably use it. Again, you'd probably be using scripts for all this stuff rather than typing it all out, but the general premise is the same. So there might be an opportunity, or there might be a time where you want to create an SFTP server, right? So if you were to do that, you would create a directory and you would and then create a user, a bit like we've already done, and then you would limit the access to that folder to that particular user, so that when they connected via SFTP client, they would only ever be able to get into that particular folder. Okay, so but I won't cover that because I've literally in almost 4 years I've been doing this now, I've never ever had to create my own groups, neither at home in projects or at work, so we'll skip that. Other basic commands, we've got ls, which basically lists what's in your directory. This one's empty. If you do ls with an A, that gives you all your hidden so -A is basically all, so which includes the hidden files. Any files with a full stop at the front of its name is a hidden file. Worth also mentioning, if you see a dollar next to the blinking cursor, then it can quickly show you that you logged in as a normal user. If it's a hash, that means your root. There we go. See, Nando, there's things I've forgotten already. Like you just take it for granted, right? That is also useful to know. I don't know if I can get in as root on here to prove that theory. I've no idea what the root password would be. It's not that. Try one more, just to prove the point. Don't remember ever setting one, so I don't know if there is one. No, doesn't look like it. Never mind. So yeah, that is also true. This bit here, a $sign being a normal user, hash being root, and all of that. All that is really is to as a visual representation to make sure you don't do something you're not supposed to. It's really just a cue to make sure that you're not removing stuff that you shouldn't be, and to just be very careful. So the first thing you do when you get a new box, if you don't have the option in the setup, so if you use some of the smaller cloud providers to practice, they're like $5 a month for a virtual machine. You can create a user beforehand and log in as that user. Some of them just create root and give you a password, and so you have to log in, create yourself a user, and then basically just never use that root again. And you just use a super user like we're doing now. So you've got ls, which will list your things. Ls with the -A will give you your hidden files as well. ls-a and l will give you a bunch of other information. So these are the user permissions, or the permissions for that particular root, so that for this particular file. So bash logout, bash rc, and bash profile have all got the same. The first 3 characters are the permissions of the owner. The next 3 are the permissions of the group, and the last 3 are the permissions of anyone else that happens to have access to this. So that is owner, that is group, that is everyone else, and this final X is whether or not it is an executable file, and I can show you what that looks like. So you'll see I'm the owner, and that is the group, so that is owner and group. These are the file sizes in kilobytes, potentially even bytes actually, and then obviously that's the date and the creation date and the time, and that might be last modified. So if we do that same command again but add H, and that is H for like human readable, what that does is change this bit here. I think it's just that bit. Yeah, so that, yeah, this was in bytes, so that is 3.7 kilobytes, 220 bytes, 807 bytes. So my default when listing any directory is that, and it also lists it. L also changed the order and put it in an actual list. So if I just ls again -a, you'll notice that they just list it horizontal, and if I do with an L, no, A and L, you'll notice it stacks them, which makes it a little bit easier to read, and also allows you, it obviously gives you the details as well, which is why it stacks them. And then if you go with the LH, just gives you a human readable size, really. So now that we've got that, and you can see there are no other files there, how do you create a file? So to create a file, there's a couple of ways. The two easiest ways are to a command called touch, and touch update the access and modification times of each file to the current time. A file argument that does not exist is created empty unless -c or -h is supplied. So a file argument, so that would be a file name. So if we do touch test.txt, now we've got our test file, okay? And then if we alh that, you'll see it's 0 bytes because it's empty, okay? And then, so that's to add a file. If you wanted to add a directory, that is mk as for make directory, and then we can call that the D at the beginning of the permissions indicates the directory as well. Where are we looking? Yes. There you go. Nando, you're on the ball. And yeah, what I didn't cover here was that dot is the current directory you're in. So in this case, my home. Dot is the directory above that. So given this, the dot represents this, and the dot represents the one above. Okay, so that goes backwards, right? Thanks for that, Nando. So where were we? We've got the test file, and to make a directory, we will call that files, and then we can list that, and you can see directory, that color has obviously changed for directories as well. So as well as that D to tell you it's a directory, we've also got colors. Some Linux distributions won't have colors, which is why the D is probably there from way before. And so that directory there is empty, and we can ls the directory by typing ls files, and it basically just returns nothing, right? So if I want to add a file directly into files, you can also tab complete. Sorry, I'm jumping around. So if you just do fi and then fil maybe, and then tab, if there is a directory, if there is a directory, it will find it, and it will allow you. So if you're looking at a web directory, everything is stored in a web server under, or Apache web server under var/www/ and then usually the website name. And that just makes things a lot easier, so you can tab through a bunch of stuff without having to type out the entire thing, as long as there's not too many matches. If there's more than one match and you tab a couple of times, it will just give you all the options, and I'll give you an example of that soon. So let's just call this file 1, and we won't give it an extension, so touch files file 1. And so now if I ls what's in files, we've got file 1. Okay, so we've still got test.txt, and now you'll notice that I've just done ls on its own, so we've got rid of the hidden files, and we've got rid of all of the other, like the root directory and stuff, because we didn't do -l. And then if I change directory now into files, we've got file 1. Okay, so another way to add a file is by just jumping in and creating it, and on most Linux distributions you'll have a couple of editors. So Nano is a text editor, and so if I do nano file 2, it will automatically open, and what you've got there is a text editor. So this is file 2, and then to save that, it's Control and X to exit when then it will prompt you to save, or you can do Control and S and it wrote one line, and then Control and X to exit, and then we've got both files there. Okay, and so Nano is a fairly easy to use editor. What have I done there? I did the hash, so that thought it was a new file. I didn't save, so that won't be there. So this is the file, right? So Nano is very easy to use and easy to get out of. You may have heard of Vim. The version Vi is usually on most files as well, on most Linux servers. So if we just create file 3, and so now Vim is very different, right? So there's a bunch of hidden commands in Vim, and it's quite difficult to get your head around. So I would focus on Nano, but I just want to show you it exists, right? And so to get into a mode where you can actually type, so if I type stuff now, it's okay. So I've typed V, so for visual. There's a bunch of commands that only work in visual mode. I don't know them. I have no idea what most of the commands are in Vim, but I just know enough to be able to move around in the editor. So if I press escape, that takes me back to, I don't even know what the name of the mode is, but if I press I, you'll see I'm now in insert mode, so bottom left. Now I can type stuff. This is file 3. I'm just going to put a bunch of text on lines, right? Okay, so now if I want to save this, yeah, Nando, I always use Vim, to be fair, but the copying and pasting and stuff, I've never really figured out. Like, I still use my mouse for that, but because it's like, isn't it like grab and drop, or I don't know. The commands are really weird. It's not like Control and C, Control and V, which you expect, but there are some things which are super easy, right? And this, I'm not going to make a Vim tutorial, but I'm just going to show you some pretty cool stuff. So if I escape now, it takes me out of insert mode, and then if you do colon and W, that writes the file. So that file is saved, right? 64 characters written, 7 lines. I'm on line 7, character 3. Okay. To exit Vim, which is, you may see a programming joke, it's just Q, right? It's not that difficult. If you've made changes and haven't saved them, you have to do Q with an exclamation mark. If you want to write your changes and then exit, it's WQ. If not, it's just Q, and that forces it basically. But we don't need to do that because we saved. So I'm just going to do that again, but go back into it, because when you're in this mode, this is, I don't know what the name of the mode is, but it's the first mode you end up in, right? You can do a bunch of stuff. And so you can tap DD, and that will delete the current row you're on without being in any edit mode or anything, which is pretty cool. So if I just delete that one, so I'm just going to do DD, you'll see here what I've pressed. If I press it again, that row completely disappears. So that's cool and really useful. If I want to delete more than one, it will start on the row you're on, but if I press 2 down there and then D, it will get rid of 2 of them, right? Amazing. That sort of stuff, if you know how many rows there are and things like that, really, really helpful. And just deleting bunch of, like, that's way quicker than even Nano. So I'm just going to exit. I don't want to save. I keep hitting, okay, I keep hitting an extra key on my keyboard. Right, we're going to go back in, so we haven't saved anything. Oh my god, I keep doing it. Sorry. What is that? It's pound sign. Or hash. File 3. Okay, right, we've got our original thing back, right? And so then jumping around is, you can just use your arrows. There are also other keys where you can move around. It might be I. No, it can't be. J. Okay, so J and K move up and down, and then there's like, I don't know, there's others as well. But one other thing is, if you've got a huge file, and we're going to some config files so I can show you, if you do capital G it takes you to the very bottom of the file. Now we don't have loads of stuff in there, so you may not have seen that. I basically just hop down, but if you do GG, it moves you to the top of the file. And there is another shortcut that gets you bang in the middle as well. So there's all sorts, and there are shortcuts to get to end of line. There are shortcuts to get to the middle of the line, the current row. Like there's all sorts of. So it's really, really useful. And like I think someone put in the Discord the other day, there's some hardcore stuff, and where people just use this as the editor. And I've worked with a guy that did it, and he swears by it. Doesn't use a visual editor, and it's difficult to pair program with people like that. So learn as much of it as you can, but unless you're really, really good, I wouldn't use it day to day. But it's used. I do use it all the time for changing like Docker files and stuff like that. Like I won't write a Docker file in like VS Code and then upload it, and then I'll just type it out or copy and paste it. So that's about as far as I'll go with Vim, I think. And then, so if we just clear that, what files have we got? We've got file 1, 2, 3. We did touch to create a file. We also used the editors Nano and Vim to enter into the files. So then if you wanted to remove a file, RM to remove, and then we'll remove file 3. And it's gone. And that's it. It is gone. So the beauty and the downfall of Linux is once you do something like this, it's deliberate. There's no, I can't go and search for a recycle bin to find file 3. It's gone, and I don't believe there's a way of getting it back. So we're just going to make a directory in here so I can show you how to remove a directory. You probably might guess based on the commands. Make directory tester ls. Right, so if I try to remove tester, right, you can't. It's a directory. So RM only works with files, unless. So there. Okay, let's just make another one so I can show you. Make the tester 2. Okay, so we've got 2 directories, tester and tester 2, and I've just shown you that RM won't remove a directory. Okay, and that's because it could have files in it, and it doesn't know what to do with those files. So if you do rm-r or -r, I don't think it matters. That means remove recurring, so recursively, everything and including tester, let's do 2. Okay. Then it will allow you to delete. Okay, so now it's gone. But it won't let you do it before that because it doesn't know, or if it does know, then it doesn't know what to do with any files that might still exist or want to exist in that directory. Okay, and then so how you actually remove a directory is, and I think this only works with, let's test it. So let's touch test.txt. Let's do that here, and I'm gonna show you another. And then we're going to come back to the removal a second. We're going to copy. So copy is just CP. Okay, so it is the file, and the syntax is CP, and then the file you want to copy, test.txt, and we want to move that to tester. Okay, and if I do that, it will use exactly the same test.txt in tester, or if I give it a new file name now, like test1.txt, it will make a copy of it and rename it all at the same time. Okay, so now I've still got my test.txt, but now if I list tester, I've also got test1.txt. Whereas if I did copy test.txt to tester without giving a file name, that's how I get the test.txt. So, removing a directory, rmdir. If I try to remove a directory with a file in, pretty sure it fails because it's not empty. Okay, so there are two options. I can change into that directory, tester, and I can remove those files manually. And there's a few ways to remove. So I can remove with the file name, test.txt, and I can list as many of these as I want. Test1, sorry. So I could do that to remove the files individually, or I could do, and we're kind of getting into regex type stuff here, but this is one of the more basic things. So I could do test with an asterisk, and it will find anything in this directory with test at the beginning and delete it. So if you've got test.txt but also test.db, for instance, a database file, it will get rid of both, which obviously isn't ideal. But if you know you want everything rid in that particular file, but you want to keep the directory, this is how you do it. And because we've only got test files in, we could literally just remove anything beginning with T, or obviously anything beginning with TE. Okay. Equally, you can put the wildcard at the beginning and do .txt, and that will remove anything with the .txt file name. Okay. File extension, sorry. So if I now ls that, that's it, they're gone. Change directory up again, and then list, and then we can remove directory tester without any complaints. And there we go, we're back to just our 3 files. Okay. So if I show you quickly this, so these files here were not executable, right? And that is that there will be an X there if it's executable. You can actually change a file. So if you create a bash script, so let's go script.shell, so .sh is a shell script, so we'll just jump straight into Vi with that, or Vim. Go to insert mode, and all we're going to do is echo standard, right? Hello world. Right, and quit. And then what you want to do is do a modification. So you would do sudo, don't know if we need sudo because we own it, chmod, and then plus x, right? So that makes it executable. And then give it the file name. Okay. So now that is changed to green. You wouldn't have seen it before, but it was just a white file like the rest. Okay, so now if I do ls alh, you'll see that that file is now executable, which is the X at the end. And to run that, you just do that is to say current directory / and then script. There's probably another way to do this as well, and then that gives you your echo hello world, right? So very, very basic, and the sorts of things you get taught, and they don't mean anything, but it is just very just a straightforward example of, like, that script could say anything, right? That script could be create new user, and in fact I'll show you how to do that. Let's create a new one. So vi create user.shell. So in here we're going to do sudo, actually we'll do the sudo outside, so we'll do add user, and we're skipping a bunch of stuff here, so you'll have to forgive me, and -1, $1, so that means the first argument passed in when you're executing this file, right? So all we're going to do is run the command add user $1. Okay, very, very straightforward. We're going to exit, right, and quit. Let's change the modification, add that create user.sh. So now we're going to have to do sudo and then present directory create user, and now we need to pass in a command, otherwise it's going to fail, or we need to pass in a parameter, otherwise it's going to fail. So let's pass in dummy user and see if that works. Password for me. There we go. So we're just adding the user now, right? So we'll just call that password. Yep. So now that very, very basic, but that is just a script that adds a user. Okay. Let's do a sudo del user. I won't put it into a script. I think you get dummy user. Remove, done. Dummy user's gone. So the group. Probably need to delete the group as well. Do we? Del group. Dummy user. Okay, how do you do that? I can't remember how to do that. Let's have a look. We'll just leave it for now. Right, so what have we got still? Ls. We've got the hello world script, so we can remove that. Remove the scripts. And we've got create user. So if I just create a folder here, make directory scripts. And let's move it. Okay, so before we copied it, which retained the original file and then created a new file as well, or a copy of it, we're going to move. So move is just mv, and we're going to move create user, and we can tab to auto-complete that, and we're going to move it into scripts. Exactly the same syntax as last time, really, so that if I give a new username there, it will rename it. If I don't, not a username, a file name, sorry. And if I don't rename it, it will just go in as create user. Create user is accurate, so let's just leave it. And now that is gone. And if we ls what's in scripts, we've got a create user. Okay. Right. So that is basics of moving around the command line, adding a user, creating files. What else did we touch on? Adding, removing files, directories, yeah, that sort of stuff. So just basic stuff, and you're going to be moving around a lot. And so if we go to root, let's see what the folder. Oh, Docker's already in here. Interesting. Oh wait, that's my Docker. What have we got in there? Host. Okay. Right, so there's a bunch of files in here, or these are all directories. So boot, as you might imagine, contains all the files required for booting into Linux. etc or etc contains all of the packages that you install. So OpenVPN. What else have we got in here? We've got the hostname stuff, cron tab. There's a bunch of stuff, but it's all core stuff. Samba, which is like file sharing, the SSH stuff. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. So, but that's all core Linux stuff. So, if I go to etc, change, and then if I go to bin, so these are binary files, and list those. These are all the commands that we've been doing, right? So if you'll see, like, ls is in here. Okay, so literally the ls command is just running that file there, and if I show you what's in that file, it's just a bunch of gobbledygook because it's written and compiled. But basically ls is just a shortcut to run this particular binary. And then if we, what else have we done? Touch will be in here as well. Touch, I'll show you top in a sec. Tmux, which is like a window management. Basically anything in here, there you go, su, sudo, anything in here is a command that you can run. Okay, there's a lot, and these are all built-in commands that come with Linux. Like there's a lot. I don't know probably what at least 2/3, maybe 3/4 of those do, but there's a lot. So what have we got? What else? We've done that. So we've got media, which is I don't think there's anything in there. Change to media. No, there's not. But if you had a USB or something and you wanted to mount it into there, you could mount it so that media was stored in a logical place. Otherwise, the default place to mount it at like an additional drive or anything is there. And then what else have we got here that's used? Temporary is temporary use file system, but anything in there would be removed on reboot. So store stuff in there at your peril. var is where you'd find logs and stuff. So if we go change directory to var and then change log, and these are all the logs. So as you start to add new services and stuff, their logs will turn up in here. So var log Apache, if you're running an Apache web server, for instance, that would appear in here. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff, but that's where logs would be. If I change directory up, if you're installing packages from apt, a lot of the services like Apache actually install themselves into here. So var www would appear here as a directory, and that's where you would store your files. So that's interesting to know. And then we've got I think there was user. What else is there? Dev is like all the devices, so like USB drives, hard drives and stuff. Home is where we saw, so change the home for all of the users. Dummy user is still there, strangely enough. Maybe I did the wrong delete user. There's two different ways. Yeah, so I might have just left that on. And then we've got the final one worth going to is user. And so once you're in here, you'll notice there's another bin, right? So if I change into bin again, this is I'm now in user bin. I'm not in just /bin. And these are basically the same commands, and I'm sure there's some history to it, why we've got a user bin and a root bin. But basically, if you were to write anything that you want to run from anywhere, you would need to drop it in here, and that is called like setting adding things to your path. So anything in user bin is executable from anywhere. So if we, like that script we had, if I added it in here, or at least a copy of it here, I should be able to run it from anywhere. I won't do that now, but that's what user bin is. What else have we got? I think that is probably it. And then if we get into things like to see what's running on the machine, so we've got top is the default. Can that be done in bash hrc? Okay, so Nando, that .bashrc is aliases, I think is what you're talking about. So if we go to, I'll come back to top in a second. Home, where am I marking the cloud? ls ALH, right? So bash rc, that's what we're talking about, right? So if we vi bash rc, and then I'm going to do capital G to get to the end. Have we got any aliases? Okay, there we go. There's an alias up there. So that shows you how to do it. Some more ls aliases. Okay, so there's already an alias, right, for ll. So if we could change this to, so L on its own is already ls-cf. So I'm going to change that to yeah, we don't use L, so we could change that to ALH, right? So that's the command we've been doing all the time, ls ALH, to get that nice listing that runs down, and it's got the file permissions and it's got the other stuff. And then so if I write that, and then if I do L, that hasn't worked. Why didn't that work? Source dot bash rc. Did that work? Okay. So what I did there was change my bash rc file, which contains a bunch of config, and I changed the alias for L to actually equal ls-alh, right? And when I tried that first time, it failed. It just did the normal L function, which is a very basic list. Okay. Then what I did was source, and that is basically telling it to reread that file in. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked until I logged out as Mark in the Cloud and logged back in. So then, once I did that, passed in that file and did L again, we've got the listing as we'd expect. So now I can just go anywhere and just type L, and I'm going to get it in a nice format instead of having to do that. Output's the same, 5 less keystrokes. Okay, so it's those little things. So Nando, that is what you're talking about. If I, where am I? Home. So if I try and run, we will do the add user thing, right? Sudo create user shell. It's not found. What I could do, okay, I think I know what you're talking about now, right? So what I could do is have an alias, right? Alias. So I could do create user and get that to equal home Mark in the Cloud / and I don't even know where we were. Was it files, scripts, create user .shell. So that is basically what you're talking about, I think, right? I'll have done well to remember that. ls changed it, files, ls scripts. Did get it right. Okay. Cool. So we try that command to prove it didn't work again. So that doesn't work. So now if I do sudo create user and type in fish. Create user, command not found. Okay. Oh no, we haven't done the source again. So I need to pull that in. Bash rc. So now if we try this, create user fish. Okay, still it isn't using. Let's go bash rc again. Create alias, create user. Home, Mark in the Cloud, files, scripts. Create user.shell. Create user. No, so that doesn't work. Don't think. Okay, so I'm going to delete that. files, scripts. So I'm going to try and copy this now. I don't usually do this sort of thing, but I want to see if it's user bin. Let's put it in user bin. Okay, I can't put it in user bin. Sudo. Okay, so now I know it works from here, so let's change to... Might be able to do that. There you go. So that's another way to get home, right? If you can't use the tilde like me, that's another way to get home. So now let me try and use create sudo create user.shell. Just add the user fish. Aha, there we go. So bash rc, I may have done something wrong there, but like I could have got the path wrong or something silly. But the moving it into user bin works, right? And that seems fine. So then if I gave it a password now, test, yes, okay, and then we've got the new user, right? So that works by adding it into user local bin. Creates the binary. So if you create a script and drop them in there, you can run them from anywhere. Okay. Otherwise, you need to be in files, scripts. You need to run it from there, and you need to do this file, create user. Okay. So I can delete that one now because that script will run from anywhere. And then if I do ls, well, I don't need to do ls. If I just do l user bin, I will have create users, but it's going to be miles away. God damn. Great. Create user.shell. Okay, so that's the thing that we copied in. So excuse me. So I was going to show you like resources and stuff. So top is a very, very ugly but is always on a Linux distribution, right? Tells you the current time, the uptime, so this has been up 59 minutes, the load average, and that's like 1 minute, 5 minute, 10 minutes or something, and then number of tasks running. Well, I said there's one actual task running, the other 10 are sleeping, CPU usage, but it's really quite difficult to read. Yes, Nando, that is exactly where I'm going next. So it's in most distributions, but htop, and there's also a couple of others, are much, much prettier. So let's make it a little bit bigger. So you'll see you've got the percentage of each of the cores. So my machine, I assume, is 6 cores with no hyper-threading. So it tells you the usage of each core. The memory, so I've got, I don't know what it is, only 32 gig. I don't know what it is, only 25 gig. Maybe Windows keeps 7 back for itself. So yeah, that's using 92 meg of 25 gig available. 11 tasks, which we already knew. 1 thread, 1 running. Load averages, and then uptime just over an hour, and then swap. Is 7 gig, and then we've got the process ID number, which is this number here, the user that has initiated these. So we've got bash, which is the shell that I'm using, and then we've got the one that I've got running in the back. So do you remember we logged in initially as Mark, and so that process is actually still behind the scenes. And then I switched user to Mark in the cloud. In fact, and then I went back and then back again. So all of those have actually created, you can see, how they were all created, where I've just jumped between each one quite messily. And so, okay, so to get out of this is Q, and you can do a bunch of stuff in here. So this is tiny process list, and there's other things you can do. So you can do, if I press F9, I can go through, and the process I'm on is htop, but you can give a bunch of signals here. So kill is 9, so that is like a forced kill of the process. So if you ever get, it's a bit like opening Task Manager on Windows, you know, Control Alt Delete Task Manager, kill a process that is just making things hang. This is how you would do it. Like if there was something in here that was running at 100% CPU and I just couldn't close it for any reason. And this works the same if you're in a Linux desktop environment, right? If something's hanging like it does in Windows, this is how you'd get to it. So escape out of there, Q to cancel. And so I'm in Mark in the Cloud. So if I control and D, I don't actually know what that stands for, but it will take me back to Mark. And so now if I run htop, there'll be one less. There's one less, but I'm fairly sure, given the couple of, I can probably D again, and it might even go back to Mark in the Cloud. Yep. Okay, so I created a bit of a chain there. And so you'll see these processes are just dropping off. So we had 11, now we're down to 7. I'm pretty sure I can go back one more to get back to Mark. Okay, and so you'll notice now this is white, so which means I must be at the original login level, and so it was green before. So if I do htop, we're down to just the initializations and the current bash. The current bash instance, right? So quit, and let's just go back to Mark in the Cloud, because that's where all the fun was happening. So that is top, and htop, yeah, like I said, top is on every Linux distribution as far as I'm aware. I've never not seen it. Htop isn't always installed. Like if you go to a really lightweight version of Linux, it's probably not going to be there. But I use it a lot. Like it's when I first started as a DevOps engineer, I had it open all the time, and it doesn't really tell you a great deal of information from 1 minute to the next. Like unless there's an issue, it doesn't really tell you a great deal. So it just felt cool to have it open all the time, and makes you feel like you know what you're doing. And in the beginning, I definitely didn't know what I was doing. So we've done the file stuff. Let's do some basics. I know. Let's install a new package, right? So I'm going to install Apache, which is the web server. So, and we're just going to do some basics around setting up a home page, and I'll probably wrap it up there because time. What's the time? I've been live over an hour. Okay, yeah, let's do that. Sudo apt install Apache 2. Yes. Okay, so that is just installing the web server, and hopefully it works. I haven't actually tried this in Windows Subsystem for Linux. And then so there's the system manager, system process manager is system CTL, and so you can go, and then it's system CTL status, and then Apache 2. Okay, so the subsystem of Linux works slightly differently. So I said initially the files would end up in var www. Okay, so we have got some stuff here. HTML change, HTML, index.html. So, okay, so we're going to edit this. So sudo ls. Oh, we can just do L, can't we? Okay, so root only. So the only way I can change them is by doing sudo. So you can see root own, and the user group root also is here. So the owner is root, so that can read write. The group can only read, which means if I open that, any changes I make I won't be able to save, and then everyone else can only read. Okay, so we're going to do sudo vi index.html. Oh wait, okay, so it's going to be the basic. So whilst we're here, then we can do localhost. Sorry, that is really bright. Localhost is not going to show up. Okay, so there's some issues around the mapping from Windows subsystem for Linux. Let's see, IP address. And let's see if there's an IP I can use to get to it. I was hoping for a 192. Can't see one. Can't see one. No, I don't think. Well, we'll try that one. No. Okay, fine. That's not going to work. Sorry. I think what I'll do is we'll do that in another session, and I will do it via Docker, because I know I can just map the Docker ports to the host port, but the Windows subsystem for Linux obviously works ever so slightly differently, and so yeah, I think we'll call it there. Hopefully that was useful. I felt like I was just blathering on a bit, and it turned basically into a Linux tutorial. I'll do another one and try and make it a bit more structured. We can go into like Docker and stuff, like, but I'm just conscious that a lot of people in the group are not that far yet. So yeah, I guess at some point all the videos could be chopped into different orders, and so they will be useful. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there, guys. Thank you very much for those of you who have been here, and most of you have been here for the duration, so I really appreciate that. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the Discord, and yeah, we'll do it again soon. Thanks very much.